Today, we're looking at a few more accidents. Accidental layoffs. When the government hands you a termination notice telling you that your employment is canceled, get your belongings and get out, and then suddenly they have a change of heart. Turns out you do have value after all. They want you to come back. This has been happening through email. This has been happening through phone calls. Let's get into it. First, we have the USDA. They had several federal employees working on preventing a bird flu outbreak. They get the notice. You're terminated. So they start gathering up their belongings. What are they going to do next? Maybe they should apply to another job. But now USDA admitted that they made a mistake by firing these staff members. They were crucial to monitoring the H5N1 bird flu. The USDA promised swift action to fix their mistake, to fix their error. But how can you make such an error when you could have easily a public health crisis on your hand? And then look on the other side, Department of Energy. What do? They fired hundreds of people that were responsible for safeguarding to monitoring the nuclear weapon systems, the warheads that they had. They were also scrambling to get those individuals back. It seems that right now, the federal government has the itchy finger when it comes to the termination slips. They're just handing them out. Thousands of them. Over 12,000 people so far, and many more to come, they've been given the notice that they're terminated. And it speaks volumes to the mantra of move fast and break things. That's what Elon Musk, that's pretty much what he lives by. Same thing for Mark Zuckerberg. Or just look at anybody in Silicon Valley. That's the mantra that they love. They cheer that. Move fast and break things. That's how you innovate. That's how you're able to take things to the next level. But the private sector is obviously different than the public sector. When you make mistakes like that in the public sector, it has serious consequences. People can get hurt. People can lose their lives. In the private sector, when you're doing that from a technology perspective, you can always push out another update. You can always squash some of those bugs and get the program running again. That's not how things are in the federal government. Let's shift. Let's look at the Indian Health Service. They had 950 federal employees, almost 1,000, that received a phone call letting them know they were going to be terminated. They're gone. And what seemed like moments later, you have RFK verbally rescinding that order. He says, hey, wait, guys, we need you to come on back. Why? Because if they were to leave, the health care for the Native American communities would be crippled. Senator Murray says it would have been a devastation of services. Then we saw Kathy Harris at the Merit System Protection Board, or the MSPB. She got terminated, only for a federal judge to order her reinstatement and letting President Trump know you can't just fire her because you don't like her. You can't fire her without cause. Now, he does have cause. He has a reason why he wants to fire her, and it's because in 2022, she was appointed by President Biden. The MSPB is an independent agency, and its primary purpose is to protect federal employees from unfair or unjust actions by government agencies. It acts as a safeguard for federal employees. It's not a big surprise why he doesn't want her there. As it is right now, they only let go of 12,000 people. There's appeals coming in because certain type of federal employees, if they're a veteran under VRA, they have appeal rights. So there are appeals coming in already. But what is to come with the large-scale reduction in force? It's going to be raining appeals. There's going to be so many appeals hitting that board, it's going to be ridiculous. And he wants to soften that agency so the appeals have a little bit less weight. Then, just when you thought it couldn't get any stranger, NASA employees at the Johnson Space Center in Houston were given a last-minute reprieve from their layoffs. They were expected to lose 1,000 employees. That represents about 6% of NASA. What was the reason for this? Was there a reason given? There's no reason. They were just going to get the axe. And now it seems like NASA wants them to continue to work. For what reason? Still don't know. Now, it seems like if you were to move a little bit slower, a little bit more methodical, a little bit more deliberate, then perhaps we wouldn't have these knee-jerk reactions of firing somebody and then reinstating them, issuing a termination letter and then asking them politely to return back to their cubicle. You wouldn't have that type of stuff. People don't like to be jerked around that way. Now, this isn't just the public sector. You don't want to see it in the private sector either. You want to have a certain level of respect for the employee that you're hiring into your organization, where you're actually thinking through what you're doing before you're just telling them that you're fired, you're hired, come back, we don't know, we'll let you know next week. I mean, that's not how you treat people. And it isn't only about the jobs of these workers, it's about the services that they're actually providing to the American public. So there are health positions that are focused on, like we just talked about, the bird flu outbreak. You don't want that happening. You got people over there trying to mitigate that. You got the firefighters trying to make sure more people don't die by wildfires. And then, you got the people making sure the weapons are safe. You got all those folks there. So when you take drastic actions, it actually has serious consequences. Now, we lost over 12,000 people on probation. These individuals, they had 1 or 2 years in the federal government largely. And they were terminated because that was their status. It wasn't based on conduct. It wasn't based on performance. It was simply because they had that classification. So they're considered low-hanging fruit, and they just wanted to chop somebody. They wanted to go ahead and reduce the federal workforce by any means possible. And they wanted to start chopping. So that's what happened with those people. But at the same time, you have different types of probation. You have one probation because the individual is brand new to the federal government. You have another type of probation where the individual is taking a supervisory role. And what's supposed to happen in that situation is if they do not pass probation as a supervisor, they are supposed to be reinstated into their old position because being a supervisor just isn't for them. Now, what the administration is doing is they're treating them one and the same. If you're on probation, it doesn't matter the reason why. You could have been in the government for 20 years, and then you switch positions, you switch agencies for 1 year, and you're still under probation, and they're using that as an excuse to go ahead and terminate you. Recently, over 5,000 federal employees, they were given a survey. How will these mass firings, when it comes to people on probation, how will that impact the organization? How will that impact your agency? And here are the results. 90% of federal workers feel that morale will take a hit. Over 80% said it will be harder to recruit, and fewer employees mean less work will get done. In some situations, federal employees, they already have too much on their plate. So one or two things are going to happen, all right? So the first thing that's going to happen is it's just simply not going to get done. And that individual, that federal employee, is going to be burnt out. And at some point, they're going to turn over. They're going to end up leaving. The second thing that might end up happening is you could look for contractor support. And that's probably the most likely option. Eventually, they're going to try to hire a contractor to assist. And I think that's where everything is headed. They want to privatize government more. And what better way than to hire some more contractors? The issue with that, I think, from a financial perspective, is currently in DC, for every federal employee, you have 2 contractors at least. And they cost money. Oftentimes, they're paid more than federal employees. Now, they could save money because the government doesn't have to give them the benefits. The government doesn't have to provide them a pension. So you're saving money like that. But as far as salaries go, they can end up costing a lot with their salaries. So we're going to have to see how that plays out. I was talking to a lady recently that was a contractor, and she was telling me that her opinion was that contractors got things done quickly. Contractors could be relied upon. Contractors were effective. And I said, yeah, sure. But there are some federal employees that are the same way. I've worked with contractors that were phenomenal. They were great. I've also worked with contractors who didn't even show up to the meeting. It was a 9 o'clock meeting. They completely missed the whole thing, and they apologized for it later. I had some contractors that showed up late. They weren't doing what they were supposed to be doing. It works both ways. It's not necessarily if you're a contractor or if you're a federal government employee. It's the type of individual that you are. Everybody is unique. Everyone has their own work ethic. Everybody has their own personality. So I don't think it's really fair to categorize the whole group as one adjective or another. Most of the focus right now is on the probationary employees. But after that, they're focused on the reduction in force, the RIF plans. Some agencies were given directives to reduce by 25%. In other agencies, it's 50%. These are large numbers in the tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands. And that's the real goal. So with that, you're going to see even more explosive legal battles, because if you try to terminate an individual that's a permanent career status employee, they have civil service protections. It will turn into an ugly fight. If you want to learn more about Doge's plan to continue to reduce the federal government, then I want you to check this video out next. If you need a federal resume example, check out the links down below. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.